Just how bad has US inflation affected the guitar market? A long time ago, I was a manager at Guitar Center. I want to say I left in August of 2003. And my job back then was operations manager. That's what I was for most of my time at Guitar Center. And what an operations manager did was oversee the money, the inventory, security, things like that. So every day I would make sure that the store was turnkey, that it would run the way it was supposed to or it was expected to make it easier for the salespeople to find what they're looking for to sell quickly, and to make sure that there was product on the floor at all times, and to make sure that everything was findable, that there was nothing missing, things like that. So with all that, I got familiar every morning because I had to show up at 7 a.m. Like what musician wakes up that early? Well, I did. I had to wake up at 7 in the morning. Actually, I had to be at work at 7 in the morning. I was awake by 5. And I was like 21 years old at the time. So what a life I lived, right? But I had to be there at 7 in the morning, and my job was to walk the floor, things like that. And I made sure that the price tags were correct and all that stuff. And because I was numbers oriented at Guitar Center, I got very, very, very familiar with price tags. I memorized them. I knew what prices were and when they would increase, things like that. I left the company back in August of 2003, I think it was at the end of July 2003. I don't remember exactly. I still remember a lot of those prices from back then. And now these days, you go on forums like, Reddit and Facebook and all these other places out there, and you start seeing people complain about price rates, how everything's going up. Well, just how bad has it gotten? And I thought, let's dive into it a little bit. Let's crunch some numbers. Let's do what we can do to see how bad it's gotten. Now, before we begin, I want to be able to point out a few things. One is this isn't really a de facto tell-all sort of thing. This isn't a gotcha. This isn't anything like that. This is loose data based around the average US economy's inflation rate. That could also vary from state to state. Every state has a different economy. There are different minimum wage rates in every different state. There's different business and operation taxes that affect different states as well. So with that in mind, some products that I might be talking about may outpace US inflation, and others may be way under US inflation. Also, I want to be able to stick to some brands that we're familiar with, that have been around for a long time, that are consistent year over year. They basically put out the same product, and they've been doing that same product for over half of a century and then some. And those two big brands are going to be Gibson and Fender. Now, I could dive into brands like PRS and Ibanez and ESP and Schecter and stuff like that, but their brands or their products change rapidly. They're always evolving, whereas Fender, on the other hand, it's really, really consistent year over year for the most part, give or take a few things. Inflation in the United States right now, as I'm recording this, from August of 2003 up until, I want to say, September of 2025, that's the latest I've been able to pull, has been roughly about 75.948%. So that's what I'm going to be basing every bit of data off of, is that number. Inflation was determined using the Consumer Price Index calculator from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics' website. So if you want to check that out for yourself, you can go down below and take a look to see what a price was back then, to see what it would inflate to now on a U.S. average. Also, the data that I'm pulling from this video is based around Musician's Friend's website, and I had to go to archive.org's Wayback Machine to be able to do it. And it worked out for me because, like I said, I think I left at the end of July 2003, and the earliest I was really able to look at was August of 2003, and that helped out a lot. It was a very slow loading website, so I'm not going to show a lot of that here, if anything at all, because it was a nightmare to pull up. If you want to cross-reference, you can go there yourself and take a look. The reason why I used Musician's Friend's website is because Guitar Center back then in 2003 did not have a web store yet. They had purchased Musician's Friend, and Musician's Friend was their catalog company. So Guitar Center was the brick and mortar company, and Musician's Friend became the catalog and online store. So Guitar Center, all their website really had on it was information about the store, the phone number, who the manager was, events coming up, things like that. That's all the website for Guitar Center would show. Now, another really important thing to figure out is that models will change from time to time. Like I said, I stuck to Fender and Gibson as best as I could because they're consistent year over year. However, there's going to be some little things here and there that are going to be slightly off. For example, reissue guitars, there might be like a 1-year difference. However, it's not like the woods are drastically different year over year, and the pickups are not drastically different. They might have different characteristics, but their retail price is roughly one and the same. So I kind of took the liberty of being able to compare one against the other just for the sake of argument, just to show that yes, some products, although they might be slightly different, they do kind of fulfill that void in the catalog for that company at the time. And these are going to compare next to each other one by one to kind of give you a basic understanding of the rate of inflation. Now, also, technology has advanced since 2003 enormously. It's also important to note that there will be technological advancements on the current models over the products that were available back then. It would be really easy to compare like an American Standard to the American Classic line that just came out because they're really, really similar, but that's not the tier of product that they were. The American Classic right now is the lower end tier of the American line versus the American Standard back then was the second level tier up on the American line. And so that tier currently is like the American Professional too. So I'll be comparing things along those lines based around, like I said, the tier of product that these guitars represent. And like I said, I'm gonna have to take a few creative liberties as certain products like reissues and such are gonna differ from 2003 to 2025. And like I said, I'm just gonna look at the 2 major brands for this video. If you have any requests for other brands you want me to check out, let me know in the comments down below. That might help out a lot. And also, I'm going to avoid like special runs and artist signature models, limited editions, things like that, because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, these limited edition models could have different variations to them, like third-party pickups and stuff like that. It's just not going to be really easy to compare a signature model back then to something today. There's a few exceptions, I'm sure, but I didn't do that for the sake of the video. And I'm not going to go year-over-year price jumps. It's not going to be effective and fair. It's not going to be a good use of your time or my time. So I'm not going to be doing that. So it is possible too, because Guitar Center, the brick and mortar store, like to separate the cases away from the guitars as they were received by the store. For example, like if a Gibson Les Paul was shipped to a store, it would have one barcode number for that whole package, the case, the guitar, everything like that. When Guitar Center would receive it back then, it's what we called exploding inventory. So the case would get its own barcode and the guitar would get its own barcode, and they would get separated in inventory. And that allowed Guitar Center to reduce the price of the sticker. And then if you wanted to buy the case separately or buy a third-party case, you had the option to do that. But you had to ask for the original factory case. However, Musician's Friend did not do that as far as I'm to understand it. They always sold the guitar with its original case. So I don't think we really have to worry about that here, because if I remember correctly, yeah, Musician's Friend always included the whole kit and caboodle with your purchase. And while I was a Guitar Center employee a long time ago, it's been over 20 years, I am in no way, shape affiliated with Musician's Friend. I'm not even an affiliate of theirs, so I'm not an affiliate of Fender and I'm not an affiliate of Gibson. They've not asked me to do this, and I doubt they would want me to do this. I'm just referencing Musician's Friend for the sake of. It's the easiest store to compare against because they've been around for a while. It was easy to look in their history, and they're still around today. And lastly, this is just a fun video. Don't take it too seriously. Don't get too angry. I mean, you're allowed to get angry. If you want to get angry, let me know in the comments. It's okay to get angry. This is just informational and nothing but informational. All right, so on to the first product. We're going to start looking at Fender first. And we are going to be looking at the Highway 1 Stratocaster or Telecaster, because they're both the same price, against the 2025 American Professional Classic Stratocaster or Telecaster. And that just came out in like the last month. Looks amazing. I'm excited to play them. I haven't even done it yet. I haven't played one, and I hope to very, very, very soon. But the reason why I'm comparing these two is the Highway 1 line back in 2003. It came out in 2002, and it was to meet the demand to offer a lower cost American-made Stratocaster or Telecaster for the market. And back then they used a real thin layer. I want to say it was nitrocellulose on the finish. It was like open pore, and it was a really rough finish. These days it's the American Professional Classic, which is basically revisiting the old American Standard line. That's what it looks like to me, with a couple little modifications, new tweaks and what have you. But it still is the lowest cost American made Strat and Tele. In between the Highway 1 line and the American Professional Classic, the Highway 1 was replaced by the American Special, then the American Special was replaced by the American Performer, and then the American Performer was replaced by the American Professional Classic. Okay, you got it. So back in August 2003, the guitar was $749.99, plus taxes and whatever, wherever you're at. So, but that was the sticker price. That's what it was advertised at. It's online. And if we were to adjust for inflation between then and now, we are looking at a price of $1,319.59. Now, the November 2025 price, the debut price of the American Professional Classic, is $1,499. That's actually exceeding the inflation rate by, or that's actually about 100% inflation. So it's about 24.05% above. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. We got California economy that we're contending with here, where these guitars are manufactured. And in addition to the parts are going to be a bit different. They might be upgraded. There's things like that we need to consider. But as far as the lowest cost American-made product, it's a high jump. So we're seeing 100% inflation on the product between then and now. So I would say that's kind of an F, although the American Professional Classics do look pretty fire. So next, we're going to look at the Jazzmaster, the 2003 62 Jazzmaster versus the 2025 American Vintage 2 66 Jazzmaster. Very different guitars, but it does fill that void, so take this with a grain of salt. So back in 2003, the 62 reissue Jazzmaster was priced at $1,434.99 plus taxes. If we were to adjust that for inflation, we are looking at $2,524.84. That's what that guitar would sell for today if we were to match US inflation. So what is the American Vintage 266 Jazzmaster coming in at? $2,729.99, which outpaces US inflation. So its actual inflation rate is 90.2%. And we're seeing a difference of 14.3 above US inflation for this model. Again, we got block inlays, we got a matching headstock. Take it with a grain of salt. Now, next, we're going to look at the 2003 American Vintage 52 Telecaster versus the 2025 American Vintage 251 Telecaster. Now, in 2025, they're not offering the 52 Telecaster, so we're looking at the year prior. This is a late 51 Telecaster reissue, so it's arguably almost a 52. So we're just going to compare these two for the sake of. In August 2003, the 52 reissue was $1,349.99. If we were to factor in inflation, that would be about $2,375.28. So what's the price of the guitar today? The 2025 price is $2,569.99, which the actual inflation, again, is 90.4%. Difference of inflation is 14.42%. It's a bit high. So again, take it as you will. Have the parts changed too much? Is the wood more prestigious? Has the wood market changed? Things like that. However, it does outpace inflation. So next, let's look at something that's a little more tangible. Something that's not, I don't know, something that kind of fills the same exact void. We're going to look at the 2003 American Standard Stratocaster and Telecaster versus the 2025 American Professional 2 Stratocaster and Telecaster. And in August 2003, the price was $949.99. Imagine that, less than $1,000. That's what it was. Now, if we were to adjust for inflation, that brings the price up to $1,671.49. So what is the November price? The November 2025 price? We are looking at $1,839.99. And that puts the inflation rate at 93.7%. Again, that's higher than the 75.948% that the US average is. So we're seeing a 17.74% difference in inflation. Now, again, these guitars are arguably the same. Some things like technological differences and some aesthetic changes, but they fill the same void. Next, we're going to look at the American Vintage 62 Stratocaster from 2003 compared to the 2025 American Vintage 261 Stratocaster. These are the closest comparisons I could find, and I think it's valid. And back in 2003, the price of that guitar was $1,434.99. And if we were to factor in inflation to today, that would be $2,524.84. So what is the American Vintage 261 Stratocaster priced at? So the November 2025 price is $2,419.99. It's actually under. We got our first win. The actual inflation percentage is 68.6%. That's pretty good. That's an A in my book. So the difference in inflation is minus 7.31%. So if you're looking for a new Fender, this is one to get. So let's look at a couple others. These next two are going to be questionable at best, but I'm comparing them for the sake of, because I know you're going to ask about it. You're going to say you left it out. I'm going to show both. So we're going to look at the 2003 standard Stratocaster Telecaster, which was manufactured in Mexico. That's what the standard line was, versus the 2025 standard Stratocaster and Telecaster, which is now manufactured by Samick in Indonesia instead of Mexico. So Samick is a third-party contractor making these guitars for Fender to their spec. Fender's not actually making these guitars themselves anymore. They're setting them up, and that's about it. They send the specs out to Samick, and that's what we're looking at. So back in 2003, the price of a standard Strat or Tele was $399.99. This is the price that really sticks in my mind when I worked at Guitar Center, because we had tons of them and they were all over on floor stands and you always saw the price tags. This is the guitar that inspired the video for me. If we were to adjust for inflation, we are looking at $703.77. So what does a guitar clock in now in November 2025? We're looking at $629.99. That's actually under the inflation. So we're looking at 57.5% inflation. Pretty good. The difference is minus 18.45%. Now, granted, again, these guitars are manufactured in two different countries. So Fender manufactured the guitar themselves in Mexico because Fender owns their own factory in Mexico, and Samick is a third-party company. A lot of people have argued that the Fender standard line is just a Squier with a Fender logo on the headstock. I'll let you guys argue that. So this is the questionable one, because again, I was comparing Fender standard, which was manufactured in Mexico, to the standard that's manufactured in Samick. Well, what happened before that guitar came out? Well, Fender actually discontinued the standard line and replaced it with the player line. Just like they did with the standard American standard. They replaced the American standard with the American Professional too. They did the same thing in Mexico, but the prices kept going up. So we're going to compare those two, because it basically is the lowest end Mexican void, if you will. Like, it's that tier product coming out of Mexico. Take it with a grain of salt. So in 2003, the standard Stratocaster Telecaster, again, comes in at $399.99. And if we were to inflate that to $703.77, so the Player 2 Stratocaster Telecaster now comes in at $839.99. It's really close to what the price was of the American Standard back in 2003. It's kind of crazy to me. What is the actual inflation on that? That's 110%. So that's the standard, basically the standard replacement out of Mexico. Are the parts better? Yeah. I mean, back then they were using poplar and basswood, and these days they're using alder and ash and things like that. I think there could be an argument that they're using better materials. Therefore, the prices have to go up. So the difference in inflation is 34.05%. That's pretty huge. Again, take it with a grain of salt. So now we're going to move out of Fender, because Fender was pretty easy. I stuck with that. But we're going to look at sort of Fender. We're going to look at Squier. Now, Squier has changed a lot. I mean, I was trying to see if I could find a lot of similarities between 2003 to 2025 as far as product lines. There wasn't a whole lot. There was a couple consistencies, though, and we're going to compare those two. So first thing, we're going to look at the 2003 Squier Bullet Stratocaster versus the 2025 Squier Bullet Stratocaster. Now, in 2003, the Squier Bullet, which came in like a hardtail, it was real thin. Guitar Center always had them on sale in the front of the store on stands, and they were like $79.99. It was a common price. I mean, imagine finding guitars at Guitar Center like a Squier Bullet for $80. That's what they were then. So let's look at what the inflated price was, and that would be $140.74. Now, if we were to look at the price of one now in November 2025, which is going to have a vibrato system on it, might have a little bit better woods. I haven't really compared the two, to be perfectly honest, but the product line is the same. It's Bullet. That's good enough for me. So we're looking at $219.99 for the Bullet. So the actual inflation is 175%. Now, you could also argue that on Amazon they have the debut line, but that's an Amazon exclusive. I can't compare that to Musician's Friend. I'm just not going to do it. It would kill the rhythm of the video. And plus, again, the debut line is there to compete with other brands like IYV and Harley Benton and people web shopping for a cheap guitar. But the difference in inflation is 99.0% between then and now. That's huge. That's a huge jump in price. I don't know if it has to do with tariffs or what, but wow. So this is the one, this is probably the most consistent guitar in the Fender catalog that I was able to compare, and that's the 2003 Squier Affinity Stratocaster versus the 2025 Squier Affinity Stratocaster, because they've been making them for so long, and it's a pretty consistent product. So in August 2003, the Affinity Stratocaster was $149.99, a good entry-level guitar, very solid. Still see tons of them used today. They're amazing guitars, great mod platforms. And if you were to adjust them for inflation today, we are looking at $263.90. So what's the guitar actually selling for today in 2025? We are looking at $304.99. That's pretty high. So the actual inflation is 103.3%. That's a difference of 27.39%. That is wild. That's a pretty huge jump. So to tie off the Squier and the whole Fender area here, we're going to look at the last one here, which is a 2003 Squier Affinity Mini Stratocaster versus a 2025 Squier Affinity Mini version 2 Stratocaster, which does have some hardware improvements. They no longer had the economy tuners. They upgraded them to die-cast sealed tuners, things like that. It's a better guitar today, but the old ones were awesome too. So in 2003, the price was $99.99 for the Affinity Mini. Adjusted for inflation, we are looking at $175.93. So what's the guitar actually coming in at? It is $199.99. That is 100% inflation. And we're looking at a difference of 24.06%. That is huge. All right, so like I said, we're tying off Squier here. Squier had quite the, and Fender in general had quite the inflation hike. I don't know if that's reflective of California's economy or if, I don't know, but it's pretty high. So next we're going to look at Gibson. Let's see what Gibson is doing out of Nashville. Let's see if they're any better. We're going to start off with the 2003 76 Explorer versus the 2025 70s Explorer. Are these guitars arguably the same? I think they are. I want to say they are. The materials are identical. One's a 76 Explorer, one's just 70s, which encapsulates the entire 70s decade. I don't know. But they look the same for the most part, and I think it's a fair assessment to compare both. So in 2003, the 76 Explorer reissue was $1,169.99. I wish I bought one back then. If we were to adjust for inflation today, that brings the price up to $2,058.57. Still palatable. So what's the 2025 price? November 2025. What are we looking at? $2,499.00. That is huge. Actual inflation is 113.6%. Now, I don't know how to justify that price increase because, I mean, like, what are they spraying the guitars with? Unicorn semen? I'm not really sure. That's insane. That is so high. So the difference in inflation is 37.64%. Oh, I didn't get that percentage symbol in there. It's okay. You got it. So next we're going to look at the 2003 Les Paul Custom versus the 2025 Custom Shop Les Paul Custom, which is a renaming scheme that they did for this one. I didn't think they were the same at first, but I think they're the same. So in August 2003, the price of the Custom was $3,299.99. And if we were to adjust that for inflation today, that's going to be $5,806.27. Not really unheard of for Gibsons to come in that high, right? I mean, lately we're seeing them easily clocking over $5,000 for some of their prestigious stuff. So what is the November 2025 price bringing in? We are looking at $5,499. It's actually below. So we're looking at, oh, that's evil, 66.6% inflation. So the difference is actually minus 9.31%. It's pretty good. That gets an A. That gets an A. Gibson did just release another Les Paul Custom, so we're going to compare those as well just to see what we're looking at here. So we're looking at the 2003 Les Paul Custom again, like we just looked at, versus the 2025 Les Paul Custom 70s. In August 2003, like I said, it's $3,299.99, and we are looking at the inflated rate of $5,806.27. So what does the Les Paul Custom 70s come in as? November 2025, we were looking at $3,999. Really good. Actual inflation is 21.2%. Difference of inflation is minus 54.77%. Now, you could argue different things about this one, but really break down the materials here. I don't know, is it really a big savings? Or, I don't know, like, I don't understand how this guitar could be way cheaper than the other custom. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess the other one was a custom shop, and this is the Les Paul Custom 70s non-custom shop. I don't know, it's a production model. But I thought I would show that just in case you're on the market looking for a Les Paul Custom. The Les Paul Custom 70s is a great bang for the buck. All right. So now we're going to look at the 2003 SG Standard versus the 2025 SG Standard. They've changed a little bit, but not too much. The headstocks are a little different, but the SG is the SG. It's got the Batwing guard. It's got the Heritage Cherry finish. Pretty standard stuff, right? So in August 2003, the price of the SG Standard was $1,299.99, which if we were to round up, or if we were to factor in inflation, $2,287.31. So what's the SG Standard coming in today in November of 2025? We are looking at $1,799. That's not bad at all. The actual inflation is 38.4%. Really good. Minus 37.56% difference between their inflated price versus the US economy. Gibson's actually looking really good right now, with the exception of the Explorer, which is just wow expensive. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move into the Les Paul Studio line. We're going to look at the 2003 Les Paul Studio versus the 2025 Les Paul Studio. I actually like the 2025 one a lot more than the older one. I didn't like gold hardware. It's not my speed. Some people love gold hardware. I just hate the way it ages. It's just me. So I like the way the new Les Paul Studios look, especially with that white guard. Ooh, that's beautiful. All right, so in August 2003, the price of the Les Paul Studio was $1,269.99. And if we were to inflate that to today's price, that would be $2,234.52. November 2025 price, actually $1,599. Not a big jump. The actual inflation rate is 25.9%. Gibson is killing it. Difference in inflation is minus 50.04%. Huge. Les Paul Studio, great buy. All right, now we're going to go ahead and look at everybody's favorite for that matter, the hot button. I can't really compare the Back to the Future guitar, but it is an ES345. So we're going to look at the 2003 ES345 reissue versus the 2025 ES345 60s. I believe these are really close. However, the 2003 model did have the Veritone switch. The 2025 one does not. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But they're both ES345s. The 2003 price is $3,099. If we were to inflate that to today, we are looking at $5,452.63. The November 2025 price is $3,799. That's really, really good. So it's actually inflated 22.6% since 2003. That's huge. So the difference in inflation is minus 53.36%. Minus 53.36%. Yeah. Really, really, really awesome. That is huge. Okay, now we're going to look at the Les Paul Standard, the 50s, 60s. So the 2003 versus the 2025. Back in August 2003, the price was $2,299.99 for a Les Paul Standard. And if we were to inflate that to today's money, that would be $4,046.79. What's the price today? We were looking at $2,799. That's amazing. A $500 price jump, that's it. 21.7% inflation rate. That's huge. Les Paul Standard, great buy. So the difference in inflation is minus 54.25%. Gibson's killing it. All right, now we're going to look at the 2003 SG61 reissue versus the 2025 SG61 reissue. Arguably the same guitar. It's the same guitar. So in August of 2003, the price of this guitar was $1,899.99. That's a big number. So if we were to adjust that for inflation today, that's $3,342.99. So what is the November 2025 price for the SG61 reissue? $1,999. $100 price jump. That's it. 22 years, $100 went up. So the actual inflation is 5.2%. That has to be the best buy on this list. The best buy by a landslide. Difference in inflation minus 70.74%. Huge. I mean, I think that the SG61 reissue's got to be, yeah, get one. Get one before Gibson watches this video and says, what the hell are we doing, man? Raise the price. It's got to go up to $22.99 now, $23.99. Who knows? This is a great buy. So now we're done with the Gibson line. We're going to look at Gibson's lower tier product, Epiphone. I think it makes sense, right? So we're going to start off with the 2003 Les Paul Studio versus the 2025 Les Paul Studio. Honestly, it looks awesome. Let's see what Epiphone's doing here. So in 2003, the Les Paul Studio, Epiphone Les Paul Studio was $229.99. And if we were to inflate that up, that's $404.66. Let's see if Epiphone's killing it the way Gibson was. So the November 2025 price is $549. Good God, actual inflation is 138.7%. Epiphone, what are you doing? Difference is 62.76%. I'm going to say that's not a good buy. Not a good buy at all. You could buy a used Les Paul, an Epiphone Les Paul Standard for way less than this. No. Sorry, Epiphone. That's a swing and a miss. On to the next one. We're going to look at the 2003 Les Paul Standard versus the 2025 Les Paul Standard 5060s. 50s or 60s means. So in August 2003, the Les Paul Standard from Epiphone was $399. So if we were to adjust that for inflation, that would bring the price up to $702.03. So what's the November 2025 price for this guitar? $699. It really has. It's matched inflation pretty much. Actual inflation, 75.2%. It's a little lower than the 75.948%. So we're seeing a difference of 0.76%. So yeah, the Epiphone Les Paul Standard has matched US inflation. I think that's the closest one we've seen. All right, so these next two are going to be questionable. They are going to be questionable. And the reason why they're questionable is because Epiphone did some things, and I feel like I have to compare these. I almost didn't, but then I was like, no, I will. Take it with a grain of salt. We're going to look at the 2003 G400, which is the 62 inspired SG, compared to the 2025 SG Standard Batwing. Now, the reason why I have to compare these two is because back in 2003, they didn't call it the SG, and they didn't offer it in a Batwing guard. This guitar was basically modeled after the 62 with the lower guard, and that's it. So this was basically the SG Standard of the time. So in August 2003, the price of this guitar was $399, and if we were to adjust for inflation, that's $702.03. We're going to see a lot of this because Epiphone was pretty standard with their pricing back then. So the November 2025 price is $599 for this guitar. So actual inflation only went up 50.1%, and that's pretty good. Not a bad price for this guitar. It's a little different, so if you're looking for the classic style, we're going to look at that next. The difference in inflation is minus 25.82%. Decent buy on this one. So this is the questionable bit. This one's tough, but I have to compare it. So we're going to look at the 2003 G400 62 inspired again versus the 2025 61 Les Paul SG with burst buckers. Again, it's got burst buckers in it, so it's going to have more. There's more under the hood. It's going to have USA made humbuckers, and it's going to cost more. But we're going to compare. Why not? August 2003 price, we were looking at $399, just as I said before, adjusted for inflation, $702.03. And the 61 Les Paul SG Burst Bucker is $949 as of November 2025. Actual inflation is 137.8%. So the difference is 61.9%. Honestly, like there's other guitars in this list, though, that I've shown that have very, very similar inflation. And people are still eating them up. So this is actually a killer guitar for the money. Really good guitar for the money. If you're looking for that classic 62, 61 style SG. These two are real similar in appearance, and it's the closest you can get today to getting that old G400 look, unless you buy used, of course. So again, take that one with a huge grain of salt. All right, on to the next one. We are looking at the 2003 Dot versus the 2025 ES335. Back in 2003, again, Epiphone did not want to use a Gibson name on this product. I don't know why. They used Les Paul, they used Explorer, they used Flying V, but they wouldn't use 335 and they wouldn't use SG, and I don't know. That's what they did, but it's the same guitar, arguably. So in August 2003, the price of this guitar was $399, which inflated, brings it to $702.03. Again, similar price point as to the rest of them. The November 2025 price of the ES335 is $599. That's actually really, really good. Only a $200 price increase. That's an inflated rate of 50.1%, and we're seeing a difference of minus 25.82% under inflation, under the national average. That's pretty good. The ES335 is a phenomenal guitar for the money. It really is. I love them. I always love playing them. All right, now we're going to look at the 2003 Les Paul Custom versus the 2025 Les Paul Custom. So in August 2003, the price was $599.99, and if you were to adjust that for inflation, we are looking at $1,055.67. You would think there's burst puckers in these new ones, but no. The November 2025 price is actually $799. They could actually get away with putting burst buckers into this thing, or you could on your own if you want. So the actual inflated percent is 33.2% compared to 2003. That's huge. Way under at minus 42.78%. That's a great number. So the Epiphone Les Paul Custom is a great buy. And this is the last one. We're going to go out with a whimper. We're going to talk about something low end. We're going to look at the 2003 Les Paul 100 or the LP 100 versus the 2025 Les Paul Tribute, which fills that same void. It's the most basic Les Paul that's full featured, meaning it's got 2 volumes, 2 tones. It's got a 3-way toggle switch on the right above the fingerboard, 2 humbuckers, stop bar, 2 pneumatic bridge, things like that. But it's a bolt-on neck. So these guitars are comparable, I think. In August 2003, the LP 100 came in at $249.99, a great entry-level Les Paul that was a fun mod platform. And if we were to adjust that for inflation today, that's going to be $439.85. So what does the Les Paul Tribute come in as? Which honestly, I think it looks better. I would rather play the Les Paul Tribute than the LP 100. So the 2025 price is only $299, a $50 price jump. It only went up 19.6%. It's a difference of minus 56.34%. That is crazy. Crazy. That's a great buy. If you're looking to shop for Christmas for somebody and they want to get a Les Paul to start with or just want a Les Paul, this is the one to get. That's kind of a wild list. Now, granted, again, I had to base a lot of this stuff on some loose examples because there's not a lot to work with. Models change all the time. You kind of have to look at the different tiers of products that come out. There's the good, the better, and the best. And that's what I tried to stick to. Did I miss something important? Is there something you didn't see on this list that you were hoping to see? Let me know in the comments. I mean, I'm always still able to look stuff up if you don't know how to do it yourself, but I'll leave links down in the description below if you're interested in checking out the calculator yourself and kind of want to get a better understanding of what a price was then versus now. And definitely check out the Wayback Machine too. It's kind of a fun site to explore. It can be frustrating because not every web page loads, and if you're trying to navigate an archaic website, it's hard. It can be really, really, really challenging. But honestly, like if you really had to ask me today, I would say Gibson is doing a great job beating the US inflation rate. Fender's inflation rate is huge compared to Gibson's, with the exception of that 70s Explorer. Good God. That's so expensive. But as far as comparing Fender to Gibson, Gibson is really, really killing it. I think Gibson's got a good price point there. And it's going to be really interesting going forward when anybody is on forums complaining about Gibson's quality control. It's like, well, you can get better quality control if they actually match their inflation rate. The US inflation rate went up to like 75% or 76%. Maybe they'll have better quality control. But until they do that, you can fix it yourself. I know you're going to get mad. Some people are going to get mad in the comments. And remember, if you like content like this, make sure you like this video. It helps your algorithm to bring you more guitar-related content. And if you want to be part of the 11th Fret family, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification to be notified when I do upload new content. Comment down below if I missed anything that you were looking forward to seeing, or if there's anything you want me to shoot a video on later in the future. Maybe I'll do another one. I could probably base another video off of Paul Reed Smith. They're relatively consistent. And let me know other brands out there that have been consistent from then to now. That'll be really, really easy to track. And I would love to do another comparison. I got my spreadsheets broken open. I've got all this stuff ready to work with. So again, thank you guys for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next video. Take it easy, everybody.